Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Welcome to the Daily Huddle Spiritual Matters. I am your host, Dr. Monikah Ogando, and I have a quote for you that's going to set the theme for today. And Sorrel, you've heard me say this before. It is the biggest decision that you'll ever make in your life is whether you live in a friendly or an unfriendly universe. Because out of that decision stem all others. That quote is by Albert Einstein. I'll see you on the other side. Good morning, everyone. Once again, welcome to the Daily Huddle. Dr. Monikah Ogando here. How are you, Andrea?
Monikah, I am the way I say I am, and today I'm present.
Present. Oh, where's my present mug when you need it? You know, I always drink out of that big old cup that says be present. So how appropriate. Sorrel, where are you? And what are you grateful for?
I am right here, right where I'm supposed to be. And I'm grateful for this idea of a quote. Mm-hmm. But in some way, I'm missing picking on Andrea every morning.
It's true.
I'm grateful for the quotes.
That is awesome. Listen, who are you going to hug today?
I'm gonna hug my mom.
Yay! As a mom, I will tell you, never gets old. Hugs from our children never get old. We never outgrow those. So I love that. Today we're talking about what is the role that your spirituality plays in terms of current events. How do you deal with it? How do you reference it? How do you depend on it? How do you insert it into your day-to-day life? Because for so many people, it seems as though it is a mutually exclusive deal. We've had this conversation for weeks now. Good morning, Rose. We've had a conversation for weeks here, but it's a millennia old conversation about what is the role of our soul in how we move around the world. Because the soul is supposed to be this otherworldly thing, this thing that nobody sees, that nobody can touch, that's only accessible to you in your relationship with the divine, whatever you call that in your tradition or culture. But then we have moments like it's not like we have a moment and then it stops. We continually have moments in our culture, in our civilization, in our society that call our faith either into question or up to the task. And what I mean by that is this idea of when we have warring countries, when we have children slaughtered in an elementary school, when we have people losing their lives at the hands of the people that are supposed to be protecting and serving them, when we have any kind of injustice or tragedy in the world, where do you go? What do you rely on? How do you make sense of this? How do you grapple with the world such that not only does it make sense to you, but also that you find your place in it? Like, this is what I'm going to do. This is how I'm going to contribute. This is how I'm going to make a difference. And it doesn't just have one answer, this question. And even with one person might have different answers depending on where they are in their world. So as you know, here in Spiritual Matters Thursdays, I have more questions than answers for you anyway. So I want you to consider these things that I'm going to ask you. One is, of course, we always start with checking our assumptions. Right, Sorrel? I know you're tickled every time I say that I always say, check your assumptions. That's rule number one in Spiritual Matters Thursdays, check your assumptions. So the number one assumption that I hear when people talk about all the crap that's going on in the world, is the idea of like, are you thinking that you're not supposed to have crap in the world? Like are you suggesting that that it's wrong to have injustices or contrast or tragedy in the world? I know that it seems confrontive. Sometimes it can be confrontive, like, yes, that's what I'm saying. It's supposed to be all good. It's supposed to be peace and love and light. And why do we have to have darkness? Why do we have to have injustices? Why do we have to have tragedies? Why do people have to die? Why do we have to have diseases? Why do people have to hate on each other? That's a great question. That's not rhetorical. Let's ask that question. Why would we need, quote unquote, to have injustices and tragedies? What good comes out of that? And how do you redefine yourself based on how you have shown up in the face of tragedy or injustices? What happens to you when you notice someone being poorly treated? How do you step up? Do you stay silent? Do you decide to avoid that person that is committing the injustice? Or do you decide for yourself, I won't be like that. I can't stop that person, but I won't be like that. I only have questions. I just have questions today. That's all I have. And what I'll say is that I have used the gift of contrast to determine for myself, I'm just kind of sharing my own experience, to determine for myself what kind of person I'm going to be in the world and what kind of wake am I going to leave behind after every interaction that someone has with me. So there was a moment, there was a phase in my life. I know you don't believe me, Sorrel, I know this is going to come as a shock to you, but there was a phase in my life where I was completely self-absorbed, self-centered, narcissistic, and didn't give a damn. Wake what? What wake? I mean, as long as I get what I want, I don't care how I leave you. You clean that up. And it took a lot of burnt bridges and me realizing what I was doing to myself, once again, self-absorbed. And I was like, wait, I don't want to live life like this. I don't want to be, at the end of the day, looking around to the people that I have had any kind of relationship with, professional, personal, family, whatever, and be the kind of person that nobody wants to hear from. It's like, no, I don't want anything to do with that woman. I don't want to be that woman that somebody would say, I don't want anything to do with that woman. And so I started chiseling, well, what does it look like to be the Monikah you want to be? What's the impact that you want to have? What are the conversations that you want to have? What are the social causes that you want to be involved in, et cetera? Because have you noticed that there are a gazillion and one social causes that you can be involved in? You could literally kill yourself from compassion fatigue. There is such a thing as compassion fatigue, where we are just, our heart is just wide open and this thing is happening over there and this thing is happening. And you just want to do so much with so many people for so many reasons that are all worth it. And you have to decide for yourself, where am I going to make the biggest difference? And here's another question that I'll ask for you. Again, confrontive question. Do you want to get involved in the world out of a sense of duty or obligation or feeling like it's the right thing to do? Or do you wish to get involved in the world because you see a vision for what the world can be and that's what's pulling you forward? There's a slight difference. There's a difference between fixing what's wrong and going after a possibility that you want to co-create with the other humans in your life. Okay. We do this with our bodies, we do this with our money, we do this with our relationships. It's a different orientation when you orient yourself from your vision versus when you orient yourself from the problem that you're avoiding or fixing. So I just have questions today. That's all I have. But I see some hands being raised. So Rose, come on up to the stage. I want to hear what you have to say. Come on up.
Oh my goodness, Dr. Monikah. Okay, so what an extraordinary inquiry you've put on the table. But I raised my hand to get you to stop asking questions. It's like, stop! You've already given us so many things to consider. Stop, stop, stop. Give us a minute to catch up here.
Yeah.
Okay, so my first reaction, and I think this is going to come out in like tidbits, right?
Mm-hmm.
I got to pull this out of my brain because, or not even out of my brain, but out of myself.
Yeah.
Right? Because this is a conversation that's very confronting.
Mm-hmm.
This is a very confronting conversation. And so there's something that's right there for me. And then there's stuff behind it that is going to make its way to the surface slowly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So my first thought is the condition of my life itself is a function of my behavior in the world. I mean, you know, who I've been, what I've said, what I've done. I've created my world as it exists for me today.
Mm-hmm.
And I truly believe that the world we live in is a creation of our collective behaviors,
Mm-hmm.
thoughts, actions, beliefs, or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So it's everything that's happening in the world we are collectively responsible for.
Yeah.
You know, the chaos in the weather is a perfect match for the chaos in the conversation of the world, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And, you know, all this, this mischief and misfortune, and, you know, these things that are going on, we're accountable, we're responsible in some way for that.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't see it aside from myself.
Yeah.
See that I feel like I have a responsibility and an accountability to put something in to my behavior, my conversation, the collective conversation that we are as a human species,
Mm-hmm.
to make a difference in not having it be the way it is,
Mm-hmm.
which is daunting. It's like, what is my, you know, how is my grain of sand gonna stop the next school shooting? I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Right.
But so my first nugget, as it unfolds in my thinking, based on what you challenge us to think, my first nugget is, I am accountable.
Yes. Let's start with that assumption.
I'm not responsible, but I'm accountable.
Yes.
And there's something for me to take responsibility for. So I'm going to stand there and I'm going to let other people contribute to the conversation and see what comes up.
Oh, how juicy. Thank you, Rose. That was lovely. I like that assumption. There are some assumptions I like. There are some assumptions I don't like. Some of them confront me and some of them are like, yeah, no, let me skip that. I like that assumption of being accountable because I can see my power from there. So thank you for bringing that to the table. Sorrel, what you got?
Oh my God, you are killing us indeed. Rose, thank you for stopping her. So standing on your shoulders, Rose, and getting into the conversation with you, Dr. Monikah, I can't help but hear at every turn, even in the word accountable, responsible, some inkling of it's my fault or it's somebody's fault and it's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And on the other side, I'm also hearing you say in the question you asked earlier, so are you saying there shouldn't be something wrong in the world?
Mm-hmm.
Are you saying war shouldn't be? Are you saying famine shouldn't be? So perhaps the invitation you're extending, and at least the one I'm extending to myself, is to consider that everything just is.
Yes.
And that I'm accountable for it says that I am the creator of it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's as if I'm playing a game with myself.
Mm-hmm.
I create it, I label it wrong, I fix it and create something else.
Yes.
I create it, I label it good, I love it and enjoy it.
Yes. Yes.
And then
out of that self-made conception, then we create our sense of significance.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you for the conversation. I don't want to dig a hole.
Deeper than I already like.
Before 9:30.
Yes, right. Right.
I'm loving
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, I love what you and Rose both brought in terms of like the individual side of it and the collective side of it. Because to your point, Rose, when I, in my city, for example, the weather analogy was perfect. Because in my city, there are places, I don't know if you've ever lived in South Florida or in the South, but there are places that it's showers, thunder, lightning, rain, puddles. And then 5 miles down the road, it's just completely sunny and just like, what happened? I thought it was raining in Atlanta. No, it's raining where you are. Where I am, it's perfectly fine on a sunny, warm day. And so it begets the question of, well, where am I standing? Where am I living? What am I seeing such that I see rain and you see sunshine? Because we're on the same earth, we're on the same planet. And I think that when we look at things like tragedies or injustices or whatever we might deem wrong in the world, it's kind of the same deal. We might be in the same city, but we're experiencing it from a different weather standpoint. And we get to decide not to move so that we can be sunny, but what do we do with the rain that we're experiencing? What do we do with the sunshine that we're experiencing? Do we spread it? Do we cause awareness? Do we call it wrong and try to fix it? Do we get an umbrella and just protect ourselves? So again, all worthy questions to consider, because when you check your assumptions and when you go down this rabbit hole of these questions, you discover for yourself, where have I been standing, consciously or unconsciously? Where have I been standing? Do I still want to stand there? And what now? Because out of that awareness can come a choice. If you don't have awareness, you don't really have choices. But out of that awareness, you can make different choices. So who else has something? Stacy, I see you pondering over there.
Well, I'm definitely going to jump on. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I'm definitely going to have to jump on the Facebook recording and listen to this from the beginning, because I just left another really powerful meeting that went over time. So I was
good.
today. But I feel like this is an extension of that very same conversation that we were just having in this other meeting. So I don't have anything to say right now. I'm just being very reflective. And this is literally perfectly timed as I'm just home for the first time in several weeks, and I'm in my own environment and challenging myself to get into my summer pattern that needs to become my fall and winter pattern as well. So this is perfectly timed.
Nice.
And so I have nothing to say. I am being quiet. I am listening. I am taking
Contemplative. That's what it was. He was pondering over there like, I'm digesting. Stop. I'm not done chewing. Hold on.
Absolutely.
That's lovely. Thank you for stepping up. I want to say that I'm going to make an assertion. I'm going to make an assertion and say that I believe it is when I take myself to task on these questions, ask myself these confrontive questions, and I start looking at what is my role in the world and how do I bring my faith in to make the difference that I want to be in the world. Not to fix anything necessarily, but there's a quality I want to insert in the world, regardless of what the world looks like right now. I want to insert a quality of peace, of collaboration, etc. If there's peace and collaboration in there, great, add to it. If there isn't, great, insert it. But that's what I'm committed to, right? And so when I think about what I'm committed to, and I think about the quality of life that I want to insert into the world for myself and others, then I can look at what is out there and see, like Rose so aptly said, I'm accountable for where have I been, such that other people aren't experiencing peace and collaboration. Like I say, I'm committed to creating in the world. What have I been busy with? What have I made more important? What have I been unwilling to risk for myself? Maybe I've not been willing to risk looking stupid. Maybe I've not been willing to risk not knowing what I'm doing. I will only put myself out there if I feel prepared and educated and informed. Maybe I'll only put myself out there if I feel like I have backup. I won't do it alone. I'll only do it when I have somebody's approval or somebody's cosign or, some big logo label that's sponsoring me or whatever the case may be. Maybe I'll only risk myself if I've had enough sleep. Maybe when I have met all of my survival needs, then I'll be available to put collaboration and peace into the world. But as long as my survival is at stake, I'm not available for collaboration. So when you begin to tell the truth to yourself about where you've been sitting or where you've been standing, then you can decide whether you want to continue standing there or whether you want to make a different choice. Because again, the assertion is the biggest decision you will ever make in your life, like Albert Einstein said, is whether you live in a friendly or an unfriendly universe. If I live in an unfriendly universe, everything is a fight. Everything is a competition. Everything is a negotiation or a barter. And in order for me to take something, you're going to have to lose it. And in order for me to win something, you're going to have to lose, or vice versa. But if I live in a friendly universe, all we're doing is negotiating our communication because we're on the same side of the table. And we both want each other to win because we're friends. And so if you adopt that point of view, then you're looking at the same thing, tragedy, injustice, miscarriage of justice, or whatever the case may be, but you're looking at it through a different lens, and you have opportunities, and you can see opportunities available to you that wouldn't otherwise be available. So I'm just here to, I don't know, play devil's advocate. Pardon the pun. Stacy says he's having this conversation with my newly 50-year-old self perfectly to stop it. You are nothing over, you're not 50. You are 27 years old, Stacy. Stop lying to the people.
Bless you. Bless you. Bless you.
That man can barely rent a car. He's not approved.
Receive all of that.
That's lovely. Happy birthday. When was your birthday?
Oh, it was March 24th, but all the entire
Another
year,
March baby. I'm a March baby too.
Awesome.
Except you're an Aries. I'm a Pisces. So we passed the baton on to you. Go ahead and start the job over again. What else? What else do we have here? Because I'll keep throwing questions at you, but you gotta come up with something. Let me know that you're pondering something.
Just not to stop the questions tree.
Say again, Sorrel. You were cutting out.
Not to stop the questions tree, but what I'm being confronted by now, and what you just said, and where the conversation is going, is when I'm not accountable, I'm actually denying my nature.
Yeah. When I'm not accountable, I'm actually denying my nature.
Yeah.
Same one.
Anything and everything that's happening out here where I am, I'm denying my nature. And that's connected with that. Maybe I could be in this, I could stand in a place where I am the creator of it all. The good, the bad, the ugly.
Mm-hmm.
Not accountable for the good, the bad, and the ugly. I'm denying my nature as the author of my world, the author of my life.
The author of your world, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely something to consider. I see Stacy and Andrea nodding. Lisette is looking like, okay.
Say that as a statement.
Wait, say it again because you're cutting out.
I want to go back and not say that as a statement on the structure.
Mm-hmm.
Also have it as a point of inquiry.
Yeah, a point of inquiry. Right.
That I'm denying my nature when I'm not accountable for everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, beautiful. Rose, you got something else?
Okay, so here's the next thing that occurred to me, right? So I may have shared this in another conversation, but so I have this fundamental belief that, when God told Adam and Eve not to eat of the tree of good and evil, he was basically saying, listen, folks, I do not want you to judge, right? Good and evil, right and wrong, bad or good. Don't judge. I don't want you to do that because you are going to get it wrong. And you have no idea what you're going to create inside of judging. right? So that's my fundamental belief. I mean, to this day, we still eat. We eat every day.
Yeah, right.
We nibble that apple every single day, right? Okay. So, but they did, and they got thrown out of the garden, and Adam and Eve, like they had children. They had Cain and Abel, the very first kids in the world, right? And Cain slew Abel. So the very first offspring of flesh, one slew another.
Mm-hmm.
And here we are, how many years later?
Mm-hmm.
Thousands of years later, and Cain is still slewing Abel.
Mm-hmm.
We're still judging and we're still killing each other. So I'm like, what is it? What is it that we need to learn, that we need to get as fundamentally who we are as human beings, that would finally stop this cycle that's almost from the beginning of time?
Well,
So
it's very obvious to me from the story that you told, is just stop having little brothers and little sisters. That'll solve the problem right there.
not gonna happen.
When I was an only child, that was fine. Now here comes this interloper. Who are you? What are you doing here?
But anyway, so that's what came up while you and Sorrel were chatting.
Yes, thank you for that. Lisette says, how do you deal with the conflicting emotions that come from trying to answer so many questions? Okay, so no rule, Monikah. Limit your inquiries to 5 questions at most per half hour. Lord have mercy, don't be spraying these people with an endless inquiry. You know what, Lisette, I think that part of experiencing our humanity is being with the emotions that bubble up. I think that our emotions are kind of like a temperature gauge for where our heart wants to go. Not necessarily that it requires an action. So for example, when I feel anger, it doesn't necessarily mean that I have to act on that anger. I don't have to exact violence on someone in order for me to diffuse my anger. I could talk it. I could cry it. I could dance it. I could get with other angry people that also want to do something about it, but then channel that activity, because emotions are really just, internal energy in motion, and channel that activity into something that we want to see out there in the world. And when I'm in the place of like, there's so much coming at me at once, I at once feel angry and frustrated and helpless and desperate and sad and disappointed and discouraged. And the first thing that helps me to manage all of that is to name it. I remember another quote from Fernando Flores. He says that language is the house of being. And so when I can name something, then I can be in relationship with it. But as long as it's like this amorphous thing and I don't know what your name is and I don't know where you come from or where you're going, then it's just like this ghost that lives in my house that I have no control over. But when I name it, I can be in relationship with it, and then I can direct my energy around it. And maybe that's helpful. Hopefully that's helpful. And I'm gonna go back to my favorite quote of all time is, my little Sarah, my daughter, when she was 3 years old, when we cried together, it goes by faster. And I think that when we grapple with these questions together, when we question ourselves and each other for the sake of an answer, not for the sake of judgment, like Rose said, not for the sake of being right or being better, but being clear together, I think we move the needle forward. So thank you, everybody, for being here. I appreciate your contributions, your further questions, and grappling with all the emotions that come forth out of all of this inquiry together. I appreciate you for being part of Thursday Spiritual Matters in the Daily Huddle. Go out there and live in the principles that we always talk about, that I always ask Sorrel to help me with, because I only remember the 8th one, and it's check your assumptions. But we'll start from the top. What's the number one, Sorrel? What'd you say?
You might start with check your assumptions.
Yeah, that's the alpha and the omega. But I want you to eat more plant-based. I want you to get at least 7 hours of sleep. I want you to love generously. I want you to ask big questions of yourself and others. That's not in there, but you know, we're gonna add it. We're gonna put the 10 commandments of the Daily Huddle before it's all done. And I want you to decide today how the world is gonna be because you're in it. Today. It doesn't have to be forever, it doesn't have to be for the rest of your life. Just for today, the world is going to be X because I've decided to be Y. And then go live that, go walk that. Go walk, give yourself the experience of walking the talk, if only for one day. And then stack the evidence that you know how to do this and you got this. Talk to you next Thursday. Bye, everybody.
Bye, thank you.
Thank you.